that you utilize their history. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans.
In one language is the universal church. That is true Catholicity. That is true Catholicism. Catholicism means universality.
Yes.
Like, that is what we're really aspiring to.
There are moments in politics when the noise gets so loud you can't tell what's real anymore. But then something happens. Something quiet, something subtle, that reveals the whole truth in a single move. And that's exactly what people felt when George Farmer, the man Candace Owens once described as her anchor, suddenly stepped out of her shadow and filed for divorce at the very moment she claimed the world was tightening its grip around her. It wasn't the paperwork that shook people, it was the timing.
Nothing romantic was said, between that day and the day that we got engaged. Nothing romantic.
Because if you listen carefully to everything Candace has been saying these past days, the silence around her is starting to sound a lot like strategy. And the deeper you look, the stranger the picture becomes. Nobody expected the news to break the way it did. No explosive announcement, no dramatic statement, just a quiet confirmation sliding its way through conservative outlets, almost as if someone wanted the story out there without drawing attention to who leaked it. For a woman whose public life has always been built on confrontation, the way this separation surfaced felt unnatural. A low hum instead of a shout.
We met, we shook hands, and I just knew. When I met her, I was like, this is a woman who, she just commanded a power.
But people noticed the timing immediately. Candace wasn't in a calm phase of her career. She wasn't resting, regrouping, or stepping back. She was in the middle of one of the most chaotic stretches she's ever had, making claims about foreign operatives, warning about threats, and hinting at unseen forces working behind the scenes. And right in the eye of that storm, the person who should have been closest to her simply stepped away. People weren't just asking why he left, they were asking why now. But the divorce was only the first sign something was shifting around her. Candace has always been bold. She criticizes without hesitation, dives into controversy like it's oxygen, and thrives on saying the thing no one else will say. But recently, her messaging changed, and it changed fast. Within days, she went from political commentary to warnings that sounded like they belonged in classified briefings. She spoke about operatives. She spoke about threats.
Important to share that information, as Kanye sent me all the messages of people who were threatening him. I have them all. To information share.
She spoke about agencies she believed had turned their attention toward her. Whether you believe her or not, the tone wasn't theatrical. It was measured, controlled, almost eerily calm. Fans didn't know what to make of it. Some believed she had simply pushed too many buttons too quickly. Others felt she had stepped into something dangerous without realizing it. But there was one detail that caught everyone's attention. Candace insisted she wasn't making these claims on her own. She said someone had reached out. And that's where the story starts to twist into something deeper. According to Candace, this entire spiral began when a person she described as high-level contacted her privately. Not a random tipster, not a fan, someone with access to information that most of us will never see. She didn't describe them with fear, she described them with certainty. She said they gave names, they gave details, they gave context, they gave warnings.
That email, that checks out. Yeah. Secret Service, the FBI, the DEA being involved, why this plane found something out and it cost him his life.
And Candace claimed she believed them. What made this moment so unsettling was that she didn't speak like someone chasing a conspiracy. She spoke like someone who had suddenly realized the walls around her were much closer than she thought. People who used to roll their eyes at her claims started watching her with a different kind of confusion, even concern. Because when someone like Candace, someone who builds her brand on being unafraid, starts treading carefully, something shifted. But while her story got louder, her allies got quieter. Conservative circles stand by their own. At least that's what most people believe. But politics is colder than it looks from the outside. Right after Candace began making these alarming claims, the reactions from the conservative world didn't trickle in. They evaporated. People who used to praise her suddenly went silent. Influencers who once mirrored her talking points stopped engaging. Donors who used to list her as a headliner removed her name from their announcements. Then came the church leaders, then the commentators, then the people she once called friends.
Judaism is a faith. Israel is a state, and it is not above critique, and that what Bibi Netanyahu has done to the Palestinians since October 7th.
Their words were harsh, but the silence afterward was worse. It wasn't anger, it wasn't outrage, it wasn't disagreement, it was distance. And when political movements start quietly separating themselves from someone, it usually means that person has stepped somewhere they weren't supposed to. But the clearest signal didn't come from speeches, or pastors, or commentators. It came from a leak that broke open a much bigger picture. When a set of alleged messages surfaced, messages Candace said were meant to smear her, the internet froze. Not because everyone believed them, not because everyone doubted them, but because no one denied them with the urgency you would expect. Candace interpreted the leak as a warning, a quiet threat.
You know, while I'm attacking the feds, maybe not going to a public event, which the feds are organizing, is probably a very good idea. I'm good.
A reminder that she was poking at the wrong doors. What unsettled people wasn't the content of the messages, it was the reaction to them. No lawsuits, no denials from the names mentioned, no rush to discredit the documents, just nothing. To Candace, that silence meant validation. To her critics, it meant someone wanted the story to hang in the air like a cloud. And suddenly, her warnings didn't sound as exaggerated to the people watching from the outside. But none of this compared to the moment she connected the dots to someone much closer, someone the movement considered untouchable. What Candace said next changed everything. She didn't accuse anyone, she didn't declare anything as fact, but she hinted, carefully, deliberately. She suggested that the same forces she believed were surrounding her may have been connected to the tragedy involving Charlie Kirk. She spoke about timing, she spoke about agencies, she spoke about things Charlie may have known, things that frightened the wrong people. For the first time, the conversation wasn't just political, it was personal. She was talking about someone who wasn't just a colleague, someone she once considered family. And in that moment, even her critics went quiet, because once you bring a death into the narrative, everything changes. And for many people, that's when George's decision started to make a lot more sense. Because the divorce wasn't the scandal, the moment he chose to leave was. People marry for many reasons, but they don't walk away without one. What makes George's move so chilling is that he didn't distance himself months ago, when Candace's career was already turbulent. He didn't step away during her controversies, her clashes, her lawsuits, or her public feuds. He stepped away when the story shifted into something darker, when she started pointing at intelligence agencies, when she started claiming she was being tracked, when she began tying everything together with a tone that felt eerily controlled.
Person has really plateaued and sort of reached their peak. I think a lot of influencers in the US are actually on a journey of self-discovery.
It wasn't emotional, it wasn't explosive, it wasn't dramatic, it was calculated. People close to conservative circles whispered the same thing. George didn't leave because he disagreed with her. He left because he knew the temperature had changed. And timing like that is never accidental. But if George was stepping back, Candace was doing the opposite. People who followed Candace for years noticed something subtle but undeniable. She didn't sound the same. Her tone slowed, her sentences stretched, her pauses lingered. She chose each word like someone aware that every syllable carried weight.
Brigitte Macron won for defamation. Well, that's no longer a thing. Because guess what? The journalist that she went after, two of them, they beat Brigitte in court.
Or consequences. She said she didn't know who she could trust anymore. She hinted that people she once considered allies were now watching her more closely than her enemies. She said she had information she hadn't released yet, information she was saving for protection. This wasn't the loud, bold, fire-breathing Candace we were used to. This was someone who felt surrounded, someone who believed she had stepped into something she couldn't back out of, someone who sounded like she was speaking with her back against a wall. And for anyone watching closely, that tone said more than any claim she had posted online. But there's another layer to all of this. Something subtle that only became obvious once people compared the last 6 months of Candace's public appearances. Her timeline doesn't look random anymore, it looks patterned. Viewers went back and started noticing the small things most people ignored the first time: the abrupt cancellations, the interviews she walked out of, the sudden dips in her online engagement, the rare pauses where she'd stare at something off screen like she was reading a message the audience wasn't allowed to see. Then came the strange unfollows, not the ones she made, but the ones made against her. 3 high-ranking conservative contributors quietly removed her from their following lists within days of each other. No statement, no explanation, just quiet digital distance. And in political media, unfollows are rarely accidental. People then notice something even more bizarre. Candace wasn't being booked for the same conferences that used to beg for her presence.
To people that I trust, a package filled with text messages, emails, private communications, videos, and private legal documents.
Event flyers that always listed her name at the top suddenly replaced her with newer, safer voices. Donors who once boosted her visibility were now pushing guests who wouldn't dare say the things Candace was saying. The shift wasn't overnight. It was creeping, slow, coordinated, like someone turning down a dimmer switch until the room goes dark. Then came the moment that truly raised alarms. Candace revealed she'd received a private message from a journalist who told her, "Be careful who you call for help. Some of them aren't on your side anymore." She didn't say the name. She didn't have to. Her face said everything: the disappointment, the shock, the realization that the circle she trusted might not be a circle at all. It was around that same time her tone changed. She wasn't debating. She wasn't arguing. She was bracing. And that's when everything in her story stopped looking like controversy and started looking like a countdown. If the political machine had truly turned its back on her, she wasn't dealing with a feud. She was dealing with an erasure. Not loud, not dramatic, but surgical. Quiet removals, silent unfollows, cancelled appearances, soft pressure. 1,000 small cuts that add up to one outcome: isolation. And when someone like Candace Owens suddenly finds herself boxed in from every angle, that's when you stop asking if she's exaggerating and start asking what she stumbled into. So here we are, a high-profile divorce appearing out of nowhere, a wave of political isolation closing in, a trail of claims involving governments, insiders, and invisible lines, and a woman speaking like she's trying to warn people before something bigger breaks. Maybe Candace stumbled onto something she shouldn't have. Maybe she's connecting dots that don't belong together. Maybe she's overwhelmed. Or maybe she's telling more truth than anyone is comfortable hearing. Whatever the answer is, one thing is clear. People aren't watching Candace Owens for controversy anymore. They're watching her because something around her feels very, very wrong. And now the final question falls on all of us. Did Candace step into a story too big for her to escape? Or is she finally revealing a world everyone else has been trying to ignore?